Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is certainly one of our key goals, along with rebuilding our economy and expanding it. Looking at greenhouse gas emissions, we look at three specific areas. One is research into how climate change is affecting California at this moment. And it really is. You can see much higher temperatures in California. You can certainly see drier climate, more fires. When we look out at the needs for power in California going out 10 years, we include in that the effects of climate change. So again, it's really, as a scientist on the commission, I can tell you that it's real. It's really affecting us now. It's probably one of the contributors to our drought, which is one of the worst in our history. So looking at how do we address climate change, we look at basically first mitigation measures, and by mitigation measures, we look at how do we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. One of the things which we've had a lot of success on is decarbonizing the grid. At this point, we have 22% renewables. If you look at what's under contract or construction or what we anticipate, by 2020, I expect us to be close to 40%. And in terms of, in addition, we do not include large hydro in our definition of renewables. So that's another 10 to 15%. So at this point, we're substantially ahead of most of the rest of the country or the world in terms of decarbonizing the grid with renewables. Now, where we're really struggling is first energy efficiency. One of our top priorities as a state is energy efficiency. We've been doing energy efficiency since the first Brown administration, particularly with new building standards and appliance standards. But we still have over 10 million buildings in the state which were in existence before the first Brown administration and are relatively inefficient. Many of those are rented space. Many of our lower income citizens live in those spaces, and we need very deep retrofits in those. Other area that's very high is decarbonizing our transportation sector. About 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions are from transportation. A lot of our economy is based upon transportation. In Los Angeles, about 18% of the economy is from goods movement. So we have to find a way with electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, to really move away from fossil fuels as a source of fueling that transportation sector. It will result in enormous air quality benefits and enormous greenhouse gas benefits. And finally, one of our challenges is looking at our gas infrastructure and looking at ways to modernize that, reduce leakage, but also deal with some of the other emissions, carbon black, but basically looking at our new scoping plan, there's a very strong emphasis at going after those uncontrolled emissions or leakage.
I'm going to talk a little bit about how we actually use that demand as a form of management and a tool to help integrate the renewables. And you may start to think of the tactics that we're going to describe in terms of shifting load as almost a form of storage. And so because we have smart meters and good intelligence about where electricity is used by consumers, we can begin to drill down not only to figure out where we need to do energy efficiency, but we can look to tactics where we actually shift when demand is present. So given that we now have so much solar that we have an oversupply during large parts of the day during the summer, we actually need to figure out how to get people to strategically consume during certain parts of the day. So techniques like giving people a price incentive to air condition their homes during those hot days in the summer early in the day when we have an overgeneration condition, and then to shut off when they come home from work. Looking at how warehousing in our goods movement industry can actually employ ice storage that they do overnight when we have lots of cheap wind in oversupply, and then use that to cool their warehouse during the day and shut down on their demand in the late afternoon when we start to see the heat skyrocket and demand increase. And so all of that then calls for a very different posture to the system. It's not simply building more generation. It's looking for ways to destroy demand and then looking for ways to manage it. That is going to be increasingly a difficult focus, but one that I think that we're very prepared to manage. It requires us to not only exploit the technological capabilities of a lot of very smart meters that can report back to us on use, that can begin to do data mining to find out where the opportunities are, to actually know when individual communities are starting to use power so that we can work with entire communities of people to actually moderate their need and to sync it with the system's needs, and then eventually to begin to figure out how we pay for the changes that they need in their system. That, I think, will stand as part of the suite of tools that we need in both the electric and the gas sector, and it will pave the way for another form of time demand as we begin to electrify our transportation system. So all these things fit together. We need to move on from renewables to begin to think about this whole system rather than simply focusing on individual components.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. I applaud you for holding such an important conference at this time. It's a really exciting time if you're interested in clean energy and especially storage. I am a commissioner at our Public Utilities Commission. We are the regulator for our electric and gas utilities. And at our commission, I am the lead commissioner for renewables, energy storage, and electric vehicles. And so the topics we're discussing today are near and dear to my heart. So in terms of successes, I think one of our key successes is that California is the first state to adopt targets for energy storage, which we did in November of this past year. We adopted a target of 1.325 gigawatts of energy storage to be procured through 2020. And it would not be possible without many of you in this room. You know, indeed, when I mention the target, some folks will say, well, that will double the amount of non-pumped hydro storage in the world. But I don't think so, because that assumes that no one else is building energy storage. And if we've learned anything from the talks this morning, we know that many countries, including Germany, are pursuing these technologies aggressively. Now, California is investing in energy storage for three purposes. One is renewables integration, two, greenhouse gas reductions, and three, to minimize investments in the distribution system. And as we pursue storage, it is important for us that it is viable and cost-effective. And so we decided to adopt targets after our legislature in 2010 passed a bill that asked us to consider these targets. And we spent a couple years really trying to understand the technology and identifying what are the use cases under which you could use storage. And the information we have so far shows us that there are many scenarios under which storage's benefits outweigh the cost. And that made us comfortable with developing these targets. But we talk about what are some of the challenges. The challenges is that this is a new space. We have new developers. It's something new for us as regulators to get used to, for our utilities to get used to. And so when we developed our targets, we set a goal, but we are really clear that we needed to be flexible with that target because there is so much to learn. And so as a part of our requirement, we're going to have a study in 3 years to assess the market, to look at the cost, to make sure that we're pursuing this in the smartest manner. Important to our process has been the coordination with the Energy Commission. They're responsible for funding some of the initial research and demonstration projects on energy storage. It's been collaboration with the California ISO that is identifying what services energy storage can provide. So indeed, as we go forward, we're going to need to continue to share our stories, to learn from each other. But I am optimistic about the potential for storage in our system.
Good to be here, and thank you, Eicke Weber, for the invitation. I think actually it's very symbolic. You're sitting in the middle of like this red sun. It feels like a very solar power kind of thing. We're orbiting around you here. I just want to say I want to congratulate the leaders and the people of Germany for what you've done to advance a clean energy future. I remember very clearly when Germany started down this path in the early 2000s, and how many people said it can't be done? And we had the same experience in California when we started, first with our 20% RPS. And my message is the people who say it can't be done need to get out of the way of the people who are doing it, because we're making it happen, and it is, I think, a lot to celebrate together. Just a quick tour around California for a moment. Okay, so we have about half the population of Germany. One big difference is we have a lot more open space, and so as a consequence, we've been able to develop a number of very large projects. And if you were to do a clean energy tour around California, you'd see we have the largest wind project in the world, the Alta Wind Energy Park, which is 1.5 gigawatts. We have now the largest solar thermal tower project in the world, which we just dedicated last month, 392 megawatts, the Ivanpah project. We have the largest solar trough plant in the world, 310 megawatts SEGS project, which has been up and running for 26 years. And we're now building the largest thin film PV project in the world, which is 550 megawatts, the Desert Sunlight project, and the largest crystalline PV project in the world, the Solar One project, 579 megawatts. And we have also the largest geothermal power plant in the world, the Geysers, at 950 megawatts. A lot of these we're just blessed. We have a lot of natural resources and the space to develop them, but also because we have the political will. We have a governor who is absolutely committed to a clean energy future. And as we've been progressing, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, once you start out, what's happened is the innovation dollars have really been unlocked in California as a result of our 33% RPS by 2020. That has unlocked $75 billion of investment into California and has really pushed the innovation forward. I think that we've seen this the most in solar power because the price has come down so dramatically, a 98% reduction in the price of a solar panel since 1980, but there's a lot of other things that are happening along with that, inverters and wind turbines, and in fact now today in California, the largest manufacturing operation in our state is an electric car factory, the Tesla factory, which is making 5,000, which has 5,000 employees and is making about 700 cars a week, and they're on track to do a $35,000 car by 2016 that goes 200 miles on a charge. So it's very exciting what we see happening now. I think the biggest challenge we're facing in the energy space is how to successfully integrate renewables. The path we're on now, we will end up with, by 2020, 33% of our energy will be from renewables, at least, and 80% of that is expected to be solar and wind, which are intermittent resources. So how do we integrate those successfully? And there's a suite of instruments that we have at our disposal. Energy storage is an important one, but demand response and wider balancing areas and dispatchable renewables, more intelligent use of our existing hydro, and of course, electric vehicles themselves can be an important part of this. So I think this is going to be the key challenge, but it helps enormously to know that we're on this journey to a clean energy future with you and Japan and some of the other countries that have stepped up, because it's something I think that we all can help each other together to achieve the goal.
Thank you for having me here today. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with the Germans and to make sure that we can find good ways to really achieve our objectives. I moved to California from Texas, so perhaps I brought some of those things to bear. Anyway, I think I can kind of bring all this to head. And as a grid operator in California, we operate a system that peaks at about 50,000 megawatts for total energy use every year, and we're a summer peaking system. We're in the process of getting to about 40% renewable integration or renewable energy on our system by 2020. And as a matter of fact, we add about 12 to 1,500 rooftop panels in the Southern California area every month. It's a fairly significant and staggering rate of increase on our system. It will be a mix of technologies, and they will be mostly on the intermittent side. Now here in California, we use a natural gas system. About 70% of our energy is from natural gas, and that becomes our balancing resource. So as we grow from our current state at about 25% to 33 to 40% by 2020, the key is How do we support this without having to lean on that natural gas fleet? Because, as Dr. Weisenmuller said, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce greenhouse gas. So what technologies exist to be able to supplant that dispatchability, that contingency support, and things like that that we currently get from that fleet? Storage can certainly play a critical role in that, but no one storage technology will solve that problem. We will need storage that does the following. We'll need storage that can respond to a contingency when you lose an 800 megawatt facility or wind disappears at 1,000 megawatts in a 30-minute period. The contingencies that will occur on the system. That's a specific kind of capability that we'll need. Secondly, we have to constantly balance the system. Every 4 seconds we balance the system. In the US it's at 60 hertz. Storage can play a role in that, so we also don't have to use power plants to do it. It reduces the wear and tear. It's far more efficient. Third, storage will allow us to handle our ramps. We expect right now, this time of the year, we have a ramp of about 6,500 megawatts from the bottom in the late afternoon to the top when people come home and turn their lights on. This ramp currently is done using these natural gas resources. If we have storage, though, that can store the sun, the solar power that's produced in the middle of the day, and it can provide that ramp, but it has to be sustained. It's a 3 to 4 hour ramp of about 10,000 megawatts. So you can see that we need substantial storage resources. They need to be of different types, but I think that presents the opportunity, and it presents the opportunity to actually reduce greenhouse gas once we get beyond 33% renewables.